What's going on, guys? Welcome back to my channel. Oh man, where to begin? Okay, so I've tried to put this video off for as long as I could. And today is officially the last day I can put it off for if I want to get this video out on time. So I just have to bite the bullet and do it. There's a lot of things I want to say in this video that don't only necessarily pertain to 911. And in the end, it will tie into it, but in the beginning, it won't seem like it will. But I need to say this for my own sanity. So just bear with me for however long it takes for me to say this. If you're American, or even if you're not American, you would know this, but specifically talking to Americans. If you're American, you will know, or you should know, that last week was election week. And I don't talk politics, and I never have talked politics on this channel. Why? Just because that's not what my channel is based around. If you've been following me, or if you're a new follower, as of recently, my content has been based around reviews for TV shows, movies, books, things like that. But I also do, fashion and makeup and all that other stuff that I love to do. And I've chosen not to speak politics on this channel because I wanted my channel, and I've always said this, I want my channel to be a safe space for everyone. I don't care who you are, what race you are, your sexual orientation, I truly don't care. I've just always wanted my channel to be a safe space for people to come and watch my content and escape reality for a little bit, or just to indulge in the things that they love, that I love also, because that's what it's always been for me. It's always been an escape where I can come and talk to you guys and vent to you guys about the things that I love, and you'll give me the feedback, and it's just a good time. It's always been a good time on this channel. But after this, or last week's, election results, it has become very clear to me, and a lot of other people in this country, that my country doesn't feel like a safe space anymore. And if I'm being really honest with myself, it never has. But after this election, it's become crystal clear that I no longer feel safe at all. Not just in my country, but in my state. Now, I am fortunate enough to live in a blue state. I live in Virginia. But, and if it hasn't already caught on yet, let me make it crystal clear. I did vote for Kamala Harris, and I'm not ashamed to say so. And I stand very firm in my political beliefs. And I've never been the person that wanted to judge people based on their political beliefs. I never really have been. I am a Democrat, clearly, but I've never really judged people for voting Republican, because it's just a difference in political beliefs. But recently, political beliefs have gone out the window. And this is a topic of morality at this point. Because in my mind, there is a big difference. And please hear me when I say this. There is a big difference between Republicans and MAGA Republicans. Huge difference. I'll never judge someone for being Republican. Voting Republican, if you voted Republican all your life, I can be friends with a Republican. MAGA Republicans is what I cannot do. Because if you chose to vote for Donald Trump in this, not even in this election, but in 2020, 2016, if you voted for him at all, you have voted against humanity, human rights, all for the sake of your pocket. Or maybe just for the sake of being uneducated. Because if you're going to sit here and tell me that you listen to Donald Trump And everything that he says, everything that he's said over the past, 8 years that he's been running for president, and tell me that his plan for this country is going to make it a better place, his quote, "Make America Great Again," and you actually believe that he's going to make America great again. And this is the nicest way because I've wrecked my brain. I've written no notes for this. This is coming off the dome. This is all improv. But I've thought long and hard about how I want to say this, and this is the nicest way that I can put it. If you are a Trump supporter, not just a Republican, because Republicans, I don't care, okay? If you are a MAGA Republican who supports Donald Trump, you are not welcome here. That is the nicest way I can put it. I've thought of many different ways to say it, and that's the nicest I've come up with. Now, I can't physically stop you from watching my content. If you like my content, I can't physically stop you from watching it, right? But I'm assuming that after I said I voted for Kamala Harris, and if you voted for Donald Trump, you were going to leave anyway. I'm just going to assume. And for everyone who's thinking, well, don't let political beliefs ruin your friendships, I never have up until this point. Because you have actively chosen to vote against my rights, not just as a woman, but as a person of color, as you voted not just mine, but all of the women, people of color, LGBTQ plus people in this country. Because this is the simplest way, and I want to keep this real short and simple because this is not the point of this video, but I have to say this. If Kamala Harris were to win, would Trump supporters have felt unsafe in their country? And if you say yes, I'm going to assume that you were only going to say yes because it would have been a woman running the country, which is incredibly misogynistic. Now, I'm going to tell you why, because Donald Trump won. And I'm not going to sit here and be like, the election was rigged, recount the votes. Honestly, that's not going to change anything. So at this point, I have to just accept what happened. But I'm going to tell you why all the group of people I just lifted off feel unsafe in their country now. And it's already started. This is not hypotheticals. This has already started. For the biggest one is that women are going to lose their right to their bodies. LGBTQ plus people will probably, maybe, lose their right to marry their partners. There are people feeling very comfortable going out and being racist towards people of color. If you've been keeping up with the news, because not everyone is into politics, but I don't see how you can't be when it's so in your face. It's literally everywhere. Black people have been receiving texts about becoming slaves, being picked up by a van to go pick cotton. Men all across the country have erupted with the phrase, spam the internet with the phrase, "your body, my choice." LGBTQ plus people are getting jumped by Trump supporters, because who else would it be? By Trump supporters. This is the person, not only the person, but this is the behavior that you voted for in this country. Because now that Donald Trump is president, and I'm not going to say it wasn't happening before, because it definitely was. But you're not going to sit here and tell me that it's not happening on a much larger scale. Now that Donald Trump is going to be president as of January, people feel very comfortable now with exhibiting their racist, homophobic, misogynistic behavior on not even 10, on 100. So, I could talk about this for hours. Honestly, because I've been talking about it since the election results came out with my mom, because my mom is really big into politics and she's raised me to be that way. So, yes, this is a subject I'm very passionate about and I could talk about it for hours, but like I said, this is not why we're here. So I'm just going to say this. I'm going to say it one more time. If you voted for Donald Trump, if you voted for hate and racism and misogyny, and for many people to get their rights taken away in this country, just for the sake of your pocket, just for the sake that you hoped to make more money, prices get cut down, I can't even tell you how. You're not welcome here. I'm not sorry, but that's just it. Okay? I'm so glad we had this talk. That's all I'm gonna say on that matter, because there's just a lot I want to say, but that's all I'm gonna say. Moving on from that, and this is how that ties into this 911 review. And I'm hoping that, and I'm honestly, this 911 review won't even bring that much comfort for the people that follow me for my reviews, because if you've watched the latest episode, you'll know why. After I found out the election votes, obviously I was devastated. If you saw, I posted a post on my community thing on my channel saying it's been a rough week for a lot of different reasons, taking time to gather myself. After I found out the election results, obviously I was devastated. I lost hope, honestly. I didn't know what to do. And obviously people on TikTok are gonna try to make you feel better. So they're like, this election might not have been what we wanted it to be, but remember the good things you have in life. Remember the things that make you happy, whether it's movies, TV show, music, whatever. Do those things that make you happy. So I caught myself thinking, oh my gosh, I cannot wait for this 911 episode to come out, so at least something good can happen in this time of whatever this is. Boy, was I wrong. And I'm going to tell you how I found out about the devastating event that happened in episode 6. Because it wasn't from me watching the episode. And it's really weird how I found out. Thursday. It was Thursday night. Or maybe Friday morning. Depending. You know, I had woken up at like around 5 a.m. And I usually wake up at least once in the middle of the night to drink water or do whatever. I had woken up, and usually when I wake up in the middle of the night, I don't check my phone, or if I do, it's only to check the time. I don't usually scroll through my notifications. But something made me do that. Something made me pick up my phone, check the time, and start scrolling my notifications. And I saw that I had gotten a comment on my latest video, which was the Tommy Kennard video. And usually I'll hold down the notification so it will give me the full comment. And I didn't even read the full comment, but the beginning of the comment said, well, it's over. And I immediately shut my phone off. Anxiety took over my body. I couldn't sleep for maybe 30-45 minutes after that, because I was just like, no. No way. Like, are you joking? Like, don't play with me right now. To say that this week, or last week, has been devastating to me, oh, what an understatement. What an understatement. Because, and I may sound dramatic when I say this, but 911 has been such a safe space for me. Especially since the whole Buck and Tommy thing happened. Because, don't get me wrong, I loved the show before all this happened. You guys know this. I've like talked about it, how I've watched it, and it's like a really good show and I love it. But the whole reason I started reviewing the show on here was because of the Buck and Tommy relationship. And this storyline has done so many things for me when it comes to my channel, because a lot of my subscribers that I have now have come from the show, me reviewing the show. And I've said this before and I'll say it again, I never knew how many people would be just interested in me sitting here talking about the TV show. But yeah, Buck and Tommy's storyline was a big part of that. Humongous part of that. And I'm not gonna lie, like literally ever since they got together, my biggest fear has been them breaking up. I told you, I think in my last video, I said every time an episode comes out about them, I have a panic attack, or not literally, but like I'm anxiety ridden until the episode comes out, because there's so many people, and I call them toxic buddy shippers, that are just constantly putting ideas out there that like they're gonna break up. they have to. They're gonna break up. And it makes me, like, scared because I'm like, or will something happen? And I'm not willing to watch the episode because the episodes air on Thursdays. I'm not willing to watch the episodes until Friday. So I have to wait an entire day, avoid spoilers and all that until I can watch it on Friday. So I feel like there's not, I mean, I'm going to, but I feel like there's really no point in reviewing episode 5 at this point because the inevitable happened in episode 6. But we're just gonna get into it. Like I said, I have not written any notes because I just couldn't pull myself together enough to do it last week. But we're gonna wing it, and I hope everything I'm gonna say makes sense. But I also want to say before we get into the review, if this really is, because, you know, I have to be delusional and I have to think of ways like they might bring Tommy back. And please allow me to be delusional, because if I can allow toxic buddy shippers to be delusional about Buck and Eddie, please allow me to just be delusional and think that they might, even for a second, might bring Tommy back. Please allow me to do that, because that is my way of coping right now. But if this really is the way they've written Tommy out, and this is the end of that storyline, I hope, and this has been a really big concern of mine, and it sounds selfish, but I know that this Buck and Tommy storyline has been a big part of my subscriber count going up, my view count going up, and I'm incredibly grateful to you guys for being here just to watch me talk about it, you know? If this is it, if this is the end of that storyline, I hope that you guys will stick around, because this is not going to be the end of me reviewing the show, because like I said, I still love the show and I'm not just going to stop watching it because this happened. I hope you guys will stick around and continue to watch me review this show and all the things that come with it, because I really enjoy doing this more than you guys know. I enjoy talking to you guys about it and hearing your feedback and commenting back to you guys. It's something I really do enjoy, because like I said, this is somewhere where I come to escape life for however long it takes me to film these videos, just for a second. This is going to be a really hard video for me to film, but I have to do it, so that is my only hope, that you guys stick around to watch me review the rest of the season and whatever else I review in the future. That is my only hope. And if you don't, that's fine too, you know? But yeah, so I've talked enough. We're gonna go ahead and get into the review. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the video. Episode 5, when I was happy. Episode 5 was the Halloween episode. And I'm only going to talk about the, you know, Buck and Tommy parts, because those are like the most important parts in the episode. The 118 get called on a call to help this father who has gotten his head stuck in a pumpkin. So they obviously go to help this father, and they end up saving him and whatnot. The father ends up, you know, saying, I just want to thank you guys. Like, I feel super dumb, like getting my head stuck in a pumpkin, but like, thank you. And Buck, oh, how I love him. Buck is just like,
Now that's okay. Doing this job long enough, you see people get hurt in much dumber ways. I think I dislocated my shoulder.
Dispatch, we're going to need an additional RA unit.
which is just the most Buck thing to ever happen to him. After this happens, they transport him to the hospital. Eddie goes with him. So next time we see Buck, he's in the hospital getting his shoulder relocated. After they relocate his shoulder, Tommy shows up. They end up telling Buck that after he heals up, he'll probably be able to go back to work to do light duty. And so Tommy overhears this and he's like, well, that sounds like good news. And Buck is like, yeah, like it is for right now. And Tommy is just like,
For the moment? What does that mean?
Don't even ask.
but of course Buck does anyway. And he ends up telling Tommy about his conspiracy theory of Billy Boyles. Now, I forgot to mention, at the beginning of this episode, they're having this competition at the firehouse. They're having this competition of who can bring the scariest prop or something like that. Buck ends up purchasing this dummy from this, like, I don't know if it's a Halloween store or a prop store or something like that, but it's this dummy body that looks like a mummy, and he wants to put it up in the firehouse because they're throwing this haunted like house thing for kids to come and trick-or-treat. You know, when they first see it, Bobby's like, Buck, this is really like disturbing, and I think it might be too much for the kids. Buck is just like, no, like, trust me, this is gonna be great. And of course Chimney is on his side because Chimney wants to make the firehouse like super scary. So they end up putting the dummy up, and once the kids see it, they're like super disturbed by it. And you know, Buck tries to, you know, calm them down. He's like, you know, it's fake, it's just a dummy. And the little girl doesn't like that his arm is like in the candy bucket. So Buck is like, well, it's fine, like, I'll just move it. He tries to move the arm. He moves one of them successfully, but he tries to move the other one and ends up ripping the arm off.
Are those worms? I think they're tetanus.
So it quickly occurs to Buck that this is not a prop. This is in fact a real body. I'm so glad that Buck stayed calm.
Oh my God, he's real! He's real! He's real!
They call Athena and they take the body and put it in investigation to see, like, why is there a real body? Like, why is this prop store selling real bodies? And of course, Buck becomes obsessed with this, and he gets a ton of information from Athena about whose corpse it is and what their story is and whatnot. So this is where he ends up telling Tommy that he has a conspiracy theory about Billy Boyles.
What else could it be besides a coincidence?
A curse.
A curse?
I took his arm, and now Billy Boyles takes mine. Billy Boyles? Told you not to ask.
Obviously, Tommy nor Eddie, clearly Eddie, does not... We knew that Eddie was not a conspiracy theorist or superstitious from earlier seasons. You know, he doesn't believe in the whole, like, if you say quiet in the firehouse, then endless calls will start coming in, or like the worst calls you've ever gotten will come in. He clearly is not superstitious at all. So that's why the whole time when Tommy's like indulging Buck and is like, what do you mean? He's like, don't even ask, because he clearly doesn't believe in it. But at least Tommy, even though he doesn't believe in it either, or at least not at first, indulges him and is listening and trying to like follow along with his theory or whatever. Now, by the end of this, he's like trying so hard to take Buck seriously until him and Eddie make eye contact. Eddie and Tommy's friendship is really funny to me. I love seeing it. Like, I love to see that, like, even though, and I didn't think that like their friendship would be affected just because Tommy and Buck got together, but I love that they show that even though Buck and Tommy have gotten together, that Eddie and Tommy's friendship has not changed. After all this, Buck gets discharged from the hospital. Him and Tommy go to his loft, and Tommy ends up staying over at his house to take care of him. Now, I didn't know this, but apparently when you dislocate your shoulder, you're not allowed to lay down or anything like that because it could cause it to get dislocated again. So he has to sleep downstairs in one of his armchairs, Buck, to prevent that. So Tommy ends up staying over at his loft to take care of him, and he ends up sleeping on the couch near him. While Tommy is gathering the things that he's gonna need for the night, like ice pack, ibuprofen, water, things like that, Buck is very obviously on a like an ADHD bender, doing a bunch of research on Billy Boyles and who he was and his background story.
His name was William James McCurdy.
Who?
Billy Boyles. I found a Substack. Has all these articles about him in the Old West.
Oh, good. Found a Substack.
You know, he ends up telling Tommy that like he was this old outlaw and he had a posse, and you know, they were all outlaws, and basically his outlaws ended up like selling him out or something. And this whole time that Buck is like telling Tommy this stuff, like Tommy is listening, but he's also just like, it's really too late for this, like it's been a long day, like I'm just trying to sleep. And Buck clearly doesn't care. He's just like, this is so interesting, and like he's so interested in this, and Tommy's trying to cut him off of his screen time.
But it's time to put away the screen.
Yeah, just 5 more minutes.
You already had your 5 more minutes. You need to rest if you want to heal. You heard the doctor.
So the next morning, Tommy is awake before Buck, and he ends up fixing him breakfast and coffee. So Tommy goes and sits the avocado toast and coffee down on the table, and he's like, well, yeah, I made you this. And he when he looks at Buck,
Good. I got you some coffee and some avocado toast.
Oh, whoa, what is it?
and Tommy doesn't want to directly say like what's wrong because he doesn't want to freak him out, even though his reaction was enough to freak him out. But he's like,
Evan, don't freak out, but there's something.
so Buck immediately asks him,
Phone.
You know, maybe we should just do phone.
so obviously this just fuels his fire for his conspiracy theory that Billy Boyles is after him because he ripped off his arm. Even after this, Tommy like still doesn't believe him, and at this point I would consider myself to be kind of superstitious when it comes to certain things. Like if I was Eddie or Tommy, I would be kind of backed into a corner and I would be like, you know what, you might be on to something, because what could this be? Like, what could this be? Like, you just randomly wake up with boils? Like, that's kind of insane. They end up calling Eddie because Eddie is a trained medic. He comes to the loft and he's checking him out, and he's like, you know, he tries to find reasonable explanations of like what might be happening.
Look, boils, rashes, shingles. A lot of skin conditions can be brought on by stress and tension.
And Eddie's like, this could be from anything. And so Tommy shares a story.
Every tax season, my accountant cousin breaks out in hives all across his legs. Super gross.
Oh, so I am gross.
That's not what I said.
Look, dude.
Which I'm like, yeah, your choice of words was not the best. Buck still is holding on tight to this like belief that it's, you know, a curse and from Billy Boyles. And Eddie's just like,
$5 will clear up by the time we're on shift.
which I'm assuming which was the same day. And I'm like, that's a big bet. Like he was like, I bet you $5 it'll be gone by shift. And obviously Buck doesn't want to believe this, but he has Eddie and Tommy basically ganging up on him, being like, it's not a curse. So he's just like, okay, fine, like, deal or whatever. By the time shift comes around, they're at the station, well, Eddie's at the station, and Buck comes up behind him and he's like,
Probably allergies, he said. Goodness. Probably just in my head, he said.
and obviously his boils, they haven't gotten worse, but they just look more inflamed. Like they look red and like kind of painful, but he doesn't ever say that they are, so I'm gonna assume that they're not. But he's like, you owe me $5, Eddie. And Eddie is visibly disturbed by the sight of Buck, so he's just like,
Yes, I do. I don't want you. Give me that.
so he ends up taking it. He's like, do you believe now? And Eddie's like,
And what, the curse? Yes, the curse.
they're so best friend coded. Like they obviously are best friends, but I'm like, they're funny. I love them too much. Skipping to the scene where they're in the hospital waiting room. They obviously got here because during the trick-or-treating, Denny, Hen's son, got pinned to a house by a car. And this is just insane. I'm like, after everything that Hen and Karen have been through, why are you putting, because they just got Mara back. So I'm like, why are you putting them through this? Because I swear to, for a second, I really thought they were about to kill Denny. It was looking real bleak for a second. I was like, no way they're about to kill this little boy off the show. They didn't. But I was like, oh my God. If they would have killed him off the show, I would have been like, so why do you enjoy putting these people through torture? I'm just wondering. Like, the writers are really cruel if they were gonna do that. They end up getting Denny out alive, and he's in the hospital. So they're all in the waiting room waiting to see how his surgery went and things like that. There's Bobby, Athena, Chimney, Buck, Eddie, and Tommy. But at first, we only see Buck and Eddie, and Buck is obviously picking at his face and like scratching his face. And so Tommy comes in with a cup of coffee for Buck, and he's like,
Stop picking.
I wasn't picking. You were picking.
and this is the dynamic that I love. Like, I love the dynamic of when your best friend ends up dating your friend. Now, this dynamic could go south real quickly, depending, but their dynamic just happens to be so good because obviously Eddie and Tommy became friends before him and Buck started dating. So, obviously, they're all very secure within themselves, so they know that Eddie probably knows. He was like, Tommy can still be my friend even though he's dating my best friend. I just love their like bestie energy. Like, he's like, I'm not gonna defend you. Like, I'm gonna tell him that you were picking. Like, oh, this episode is so hard to talk about after the whole episode 6 thing. Like, I find myself really struggling to talk about this. Sorry. But anyways, they eventually, you know, get the news that Denny's gonna be okay. And Tommy said something, and he's like,
It's a beautiful thing, isn't it? Having a crew like this behind you, even when things go wrong.
Especially when things go wrong.
and this ends up sparking an idea in Buck's head about the whole Billy Boyles thing. And so he's like, oh my God, that's it. And Tommy's like, what? And he's like, I know how to break the curse. And then you pan to Tommy and Eddie's face, and they just like roll their eyes because they're like, bro, he's still on about this curse. By the end of the episode, Tommy takes Buck to Billy Boyle's gravesite because they end up burying the corpse and giving him a headstone and all that. So he goes to Billy Boyle's grave, and he's given this whole speech about how his posse betrayed him, and that must have been really hard for him. But at the beginning of his speech, he says,
Now you have me looking like a leper, and my own boyfriend won't even kiss me.
Oh, that's not true.
and I didn't hear anything after the word boyfriend, because I was like, so we're using the B word, like that's where we're at. And I'm like, okay, bet. Like, oh my God, the excitement I felt was so crazy, because I was like, because clearly, and I said this in my last video, we don't know the timeline in which they've gotten together. We find out in the next episode, but we don't know the timeline in which they've been together. So if we're using the B word, it's probably been a little minute, you know what I mean? So I was like, bet, like this is, bro, they're locked in. They're like, you're using the B word, like this is wild. So at the end of his speech, you know, he feels satisfied and he ends up walking away from the gravesite. And Tommy comes up to the grave after Buck walks away. And maybe Buck has convinced Tommy that maybe all of this might be true, because when he walks up to the grave, he ends up telling him, he's like, please lift it, like the curse. And I'm just like, oh my God, like it's just really sweet to see Tommy indulge Buck in these superstitions, and not call him like stupid or dumb or anything like that. Not saying that that has happened to him in the past, but it's just really sweet to see him like indulge him, even if he doesn't believe in it, you know, because clearly Buck does. So he's just like, I'll support him, you know? So that's how we end episode 5. Clearly by the end of this episode, I was having so much hope that they were going to be in game. And I was like, yeah, like this is it. Like they're calling each other boyfriend. Like this is it. Like it's going really well. Then we get into episode 6. And I'm not going to lie to you, this episode has affected me a lot more than I thought it would. Like, I've shed tears over this episode because, like I said, and I feel like, and I hate when I feel like this because I feel so dramatic getting so attached to these characters, because I have to keep reminding myself it's just a TV show, it's not real life. But I think what's affecting me is the fact that this has affected my real life when it comes to this. It's really like heart-wrenching. Like, I'm devastated by this. So let's go ahead and get into it. Episode 6, we see Buck and Tommy are out to dinner, and we see Tommy pull out a present for Buck, and I think Buck ends up asking him like, do you know what today is? And Tommy's like, I'm gonna guess that it's our 6-month anniversary. And I'm like, dude, 6 months? Like, I don't know, to some people 6 months might not be a long time, but I'm like, that's half a year. That's half a year, bro. Like, that's actually insane that they've been together for 6 months. So he pulls out a present for him, and it's Lakers basketball tickets. And I don't know, I mean, I remember Buck saying like he doesn't like basketball, but I'm like, is it just that he doesn't like to play basketball, or does he just like enjoy watching it? I'm not sure, I don't know. But after he gives him the present, this girl ends up walking up to him or them, and she's like, hey, can you take a picture of me and my friends? Like, we're having a girls' night and we just want to get some pictures of all of us together. And Buck, you know, obviously gets visibly nervous, I guess, because let's not forget, Buck is bisexual. And the girl's pretty. So he's like, yeah, like I could definitely do that. So he gets up and he like pulls out his phone. And she's like, oh, like actually, like can you do it on my phone? And she's like, unless you were hoping to get my number. And he's like, he gets really flustered. He's like, no, like that was not my intention. So he goes over and, you know, takes some pictures of them. He's like, okay, like I took a bunch, like you guys look great. And then he's like, have a good night. Obviously that interaction, because you know, the girl probably just assumed that they were guys out for dinner. Literally what Tommy has been saying from the beginning. But obviously she didn't know that that was his boyfriend, so Buck feels weird about it, that interaction happened in front of Tommy. And Tommy's not being weird about it, you know, Tommy's just watching the interaction happen. And so he goes back to the table and he's like,
That was kind of weird.
No, it wasn't. You're hot, so is she. It's okay to look.
and so this strikes up a curiosity in Buck's mind, and he asks Tommy, you know, have you ever like dealt with a woman? And Tommy is like, yeah. And so, hold on, side note, before I move on. When I first heard, because people in my comments were telling me, you know, we're going to learn more about Tommy's past in episode 6. And I was over here thinking, oh, we're going to learn about maybe his childhood and what it was like, or the way he grew up and things like that. I fully did not expect the past to be about his ex. This is not to say I was disappointed, but I was just like, this is really not where I thought this was going to go. But Tommy ends up telling Buck that he did in fact was involved with a woman.
In fact, I was almost married to one. We were engaged for 2 years until I called it off, which was probably the only honest thing I did in that entire relationship.
You know, Buck is like, wow, like that's a real commitment. He's like, yeah, like, and I think Tommy ends up, you know, saying, you know,
After what I put her through, Abby deserved better.
Abby Clark.
and this, as soon as he said that, I started freaking out. And my mom was like, what? Like, what's happening? Because do you know how long people have been speculating if Abby's Tommy was that Tommy? Because if you go back to season 1, I think it's literally in the first episode, she talks about breaking off her engagement with Tommy. And people have been speculating for so long, like, what if this is the Tommy? Like, what if that's her Tommy? And I was like, that could definitely be a possibility. But I was like, I don't know if the writers are going to do that. Like, I don't know. Clearly they did, because I'm like, no way. They actually wrote it in, like, they made it canon. Tommy's like, yeah, like, we were engaged for a while before she left me for some himbo half her age. And I was like, I'm gonna hold your hand when I say this. Anyway, so after this, Buck doesn't really press on it too much after this. But he does start spiraling out about it, which is a very Buck thing to do. And so he ends up going to Maddie and, you know, telling her, and Maddie is such a gossip. I love Maddie, because he's like,
That's crazy.
I know.
I wonder how many men she turned gay. I'm kidding.
Josh ends up coming in and is like,
I'm totally not eavesdropping. Who kissed a boy?
Buck,
Oh, Tommy. Unless there's another boy?
there's another woman.
Wait, what?
Buck slept with Tommy's fiance.
I'm like, dude, this is so crazy. Buck is obviously very, I won't say torn up about it, because he wasn't torn up, but he was just very, I guess, conflicted, because the way he was thinking about it, which kind of caught me off guard, was he was like, you know, I just didn't expect, like, Tommy could be this, like, cruel and stuff like that. And I was really shocked to hear him express it like that, because I was like, what? Like, I don't know. To me, I didn't see it that way, where he was like, he broke off his engagement with Abby. Now, we don't know the full extent of the situation. So was he honest about the reason why he broke up with Abby or called off the engagement? We don't know. But obviously he's seeing Tommy in a different light because of the situation. So Josh, being the real MVP, I would argue Josh needs more screen time. I love Josh. Josh is so that girl. But he goes up to, because obviously Josh is gay. We know this. So he's going to be the next best person other than Hen to give Buck some solid advice on this, right? the way he explains it is so funny because he's like, there's a pre-Glee world and a post-Glee world. And Buck is just like, oh, I never watched Glee. And he's like, but that's the beauty of it. You don't have to watch Glee to experience it. And so basically his I don't know if it's a metaphor, an analogy, whatever. But he's like, basically,
Tommy, guys like me, we came up in the pre-Glee world. It was scarier, more confusing, and not half as accepting. You don't judge the people who came before you. The ones who fought battles you didn't have to. Because they have scars. You wanted their scars.
And if this does not prove my point from my last video about the Tommy Kennard hate, I don't know what does. Because that was literally my whole point, is like, y'all are seeing it very surface level when it comes to Tommy being like, you know, he was, you know, homophobic, misogynistic, racist. And yes, that's the whole point. Nobody is defending him in the fact that he wasn't those things. Now, some people say they didn't see his comments as misogynistic and or racist. They were. And some people are not. I think some people don't know what to look for when they see, you know, when they hear those terms, they don't know exactly what they're looking for. But the comments were. And like at the end of the day, they were. And the point is, nobody's defending him being like, well, it's fine that he did that, because it wasn't. It definitely wasn't fine. But what environment was he figuring himself out in? If you haven't seen that video, please go check it out, because it sparks up good conversation. But that is the whole point. The environment that he found himself figuring himself out in was so detrimental that he felt he had to closet himself for so long that he got engaged to a woman that he knew he didn't love before he could feel he could be true to himself and break off his engagement. That's just the whole point I was trying to make. And I love that Josh explained it so beautifully for me while using Glee, because yes, I love that. I loved it. Obviously, after saying this, Buck is, you know, put at ease a lot more, because he even asks Buck, he's like, do you see yourself having a future with Tommy? And he's just like, yeah, like I do. And he's like, then that's all you need to know, because you obviously know you've been together for 6 months. Granted, for a lot of people, 6 months is not long enough to determine whether you're going to stay together or not. But you've been together for 6 months. He hasn't said, up until this point, he hasn't shown or said anything that would, you know, imply that he was not serious about the relationship or anything. So after this conversation with Josh, I think Buck is feeling a lot more at ease, but he still wants to be honest with Tommy. So here we go. Here's the scene that has shattered my heart and had me depressed for the past 2-3 days. Tommy shows up at Buck's loft. They're about to go out for a movie. So Tommy walks in. He's like, hey, you know, like, we should talking about, like, I don't know, a different route they should take to avoid traffic or something like that. And Buck is just like, yeah, okay, but he wants to talk to Tommy first. So he's like, can we talk for a second? And Tommy's like, yeah, like, is everything okay? He's like, yeah, like, you know, everything will be, but I just, you know, wanted to talk to you. So he ends up saying, you know, I've been thinking about the story you told me when we were at dinner about Abby.
I appreciate how honest you were with me, and now I want to be honest with you.
Uh-oh.
You know, because this feels like can we, if anyone says, can we talk, anxiety's through the roof, because you're like, this could be anything, you know what I mean?
Oh, not uh-oh. In fact, maybe, oh.
He pulls out his phone, and he pulls up pictures from him and Abby when they were in a relationship. Now, how does he still have these pictures? I don't know. He gives Tommy the phone. He's like, this will explain everything. And so at first, it's just a picture of them together, smiling. And Tommy's like, oh, no way. Like, you knew Abby? And then he scrolls, and it's a picture of them kissing. And he's like,
Did you two?
I'm the himbo.
Tommy's not upset. You know what I mean? Like, this is not the thing that makes him upset. He's just like,
Well, listen, obviously, if I had known, I never would have used that word.
and Buck is like explaining to him. He's like,
No, I was. I definitely was. But that was before Abby.
and he's like, but that relationship fundamentally changed me as a person, which it did, because this was the whole relationship, and the way it ended is like so devastating, but that was the relationship that I think started Buck's descent into becoming more of a man instead of a boy, because season 1 Buck was off the chain. But part of the point of the relationship with Abby was, at first it kind of started off as a challenge, for lack of better words, because he was like, I'm not gonna have sex with this woman, I'm going to get to know her as a person, and it worked. I can't remember if they ended up having sex or not, but that was the relationship that fundamentally changed him as a person. Like, he wanted to settle down with this woman, and unfortunately she just did not feel the same way, so she ended up leaving and, you know, saying she was gonna come back, and she never did. But he tells Tommy this, and he's like,
No, my relationship with Abby was the most transformative of my life. Until now.
and this is where it starts to crumble, and this is where it doesn't make sense to me. He straight up asks him,
I want you to move in with me. I want you to move in with me.
and this strikes Tommy. Like, the fear and everything on his face is so evident, and I'm like, uh-oh. And Tommy is just like, I can't move in with you. And Buck is just like, and Buck at first, he's not really taking it seriously. He's just like, why not? And he's like, basically Tommy's whole reasoning behind this is,
No matter how bad I want it to be, I'm not your last. I'm your first.
basically he's saying this whole 6 months has just been a honeymoon phase. And he's like, I know how this ends, and you're gonna end up breaking my heart. And after he dumps this whole bombshell on Buck, he's like, I have to go. And he gets up to leave. And Buck is just like,
Wait, hey, wait, did you just break up with me?
Yeah, I guess I did.
and yo, the knife was already in my heart. The twist was when he was like,
I'll see you around, Buck.
I'm sorry, who's Buck? Who's Buck? What happened to Evan? Oh my god. So, okay, let's get into it, because this doesn't make any sense to me. And because I'm delusional and I'm choosing to believe that they're gonna bring him back. And I know there are reasons for me to believe that he's not, because one, I follow Lou, the actor, on Instagram, and he posted on his story like something about this being his farewell, and he was like, it's been an honor. And I'm like, don't play with me like that. Why are you joking? Haha, you're funny. And if they were trying to write him out in a way that left no possibility for them to bring him back, they failed miserably. Because you're telling me that after 6 months of being together, you wait until this guy gets so attached, and you yourself get attached to this person, and when they want to take the next step, and maybe 6 months was too soon for him, but your solution, if 6 months is too soon for you to move in, a more logical solution would to be like, you know, I don't know if I'm ready for that step. I'm enjoying this time with you so much, but I just feel like 6 months is a little too soon, and I think we should wait. That's the more logical solution, instead of being like, you're gonna break my heart, I gotta go. Like, that's fear. That's fear. And if that is the way they're gonna write him out, that's terrible writing. Sorry. I'm not a writer. I don't write for it, but like, that's terrible. And Buck did everything right. You know what I mean? instead of spiraling out about this whole Abby thing. And that's the thing. It wasn't even the Abby thing that caused the breakup. That's what's getting me. It's the him asking him to move in. Like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean? Like, what do you, like, see, what I thought was gonna happen, and what would have been a more reasonable writing him out if they're planning on fully removing him. What I thought was gonna happen was he would have got a job somewhere else that wasn't in LA. And he talks to Buck about it, and he's like, I got a job offer, and I don't really want to turn it down. And, you know, Buck, probably being the sweetheart he is, being like, I don't want to keep you from a better job opportunity, so you should go. That was what I thought was going to happen when it came to the breakup. Because that would have been a much better way to write him out. But him being like, I'm your first boyfriend, it's never going to work, you're going to break my heart. And then him not even letting Buck say anything. Him saying his piece and being like, I have to go. That's fear. That's fear. That's fear of getting hurt. And I understand where it's coming from. But at the same time, what is it that Eddie said to Buck when Buck first told him that him and Tommy were seeing each other? Run it back. He said, don't run away from something before you even know what it is. So here's what I need. Because this is my way of coping. Because I can't, in good conscience, believe that this is the way they're going to write him out. I think they're messing with us. And call me delusional. I might be. But this is literally just my way of coping with the situation. They're going to bring him back. This is how I think they're going to do it. And this is what I need. So at the end of the episode, we see Buck go to Eddie's house. Oh, and I want to talk about Eddie too. But he goes to Eddie's house with couple beers, obviously very devastated. Eddie has been he went to a confessional to talk about his issues. At first he didn't think it was going to work, but then he ran into the priest, or the father, whatever you want to call him, at a juice bar or cafe or whatever you want to call it. And the priest basically ended up telling him that he's not allowing himself to be happy because he thinks he doesn't deserve it. So he basically gives him homework. And he's like, you know, I want you to do something that allows you to feel joy. That's not his exact words, but that was basically the homework. So while Eddie is over here basically prospering, working through his trauma, which I'm so happy, thank the Lord that he's finally working through it. Because, Lord, I can't live to see him suffer another day. I just can't. So before Bucket came over, he was dancing and like enjoying himself, and it's really, really good to see him like that. I really enjoyed that scene, the dancing scene, really funny. Buck comes over, obviously very devastated, and you know, that's where it ends. Like, we don't see them talk or anything like that. This is what I need. I need either Eddie or Hen, because both of them know Tommy. Now, Tommy is probably more friends with Eddie than she is Hen, but I was thinking Hen because Hen is a lesbian. So she has much experience with, you know, LGBTQ relationships. She is literally in one. I need one of them to go to Tommy, either go to his house, call him something, and be like, what are you doing? And you know Tommy's gonna be like, I know where this goes. And I need them to be like, Tommy, my friend, this is fear talking. How are you sabotaging something and you don't even know where it's gonna go? You've been together for 6 months. It's been amazing. And you're breaking up with him because he asked you to move in? Like, do you hear yourself right now? You're breaking up with him because he asked you to take the next step with you. And I get it. If you're not ready for it, say that. But to break up with him is actually insane. That's a wild, wild reaction. I need someone to talk to Buck, either Eddie or Bobby, because I did hear Oliver, the actor of Buck, said he's going to have a conversation with Bobby. I need Bobby to talk to Buck and be like, you can't let this relationship slip. You can't just give up. You can't give up on this. I mean, this is a good, like, pointing to all the right directions. We go back to when they first started dating. Everything has been going well. Bobby approved of him. Hin pretty much approved of him. I mean, she asked him what his intentions are, but he's like, we're taking it very slow, and I'm letting him take the reins. So he's taking the reins. He's doing what you said you wanted him to do. He's taking the reins. He's setting the pace, asking you to move in, and you let fear ruin that for both of you. No, because that's a crazy switch up. From episode 5 to episode 6, that's a crazy switch up. I am choosing not to believe that that is the way they're going to write him out, because what terrible writing that is if that is the way. And it's going to take, if that is really the end, it's going to take so long for me to get over it, because this was it. This was supposed to be it. You know? And you know what? Because I said this in my first review for episode 8. I said, what would I like to see from Buck and Tommy? And I was like, I would maybe like to see them go through a hardship and them have to work through it. I said that. If this is the hardship, I just need them to come out on the other side of it. You know what I mean? I need them to come out on the other side of it, because this doesn't make any sense to me if this is how they're choosing to end their relationship. The switch up is insane. There is plenty of room to bring him back. Man, I was fully not expecting that. I mean, they really gave us whiplash with that one. And I think another thing that made me so partially angry is I knew the toxic buddy shippers were going to snatch this up and run with it. And boy, did they ever. Boy, did they ever. And then I knew the scene between Eddie and the priest. Were they going to take that and run with it? They surely did. They surely did. Even though literally during the scene, the priest sits down with Eddie, and Eddie's like, oh, I'm sorry, like, I'm straight. And the priest is like, no worries, because I'm celibate. But they want to take him, they want to take him choosing fruit juice at first, and then being like, oh, never mind, I want water, as a sign that he might be gay. Now, if I'm wrong, and they end up making Eddie gay or whatever, I'll admit that. I'll admit that I'm wrong. And then I just saw a thing, it was like kind of like an article, but I only saw the headline. And it was like 911 opens up an opportunity for Buck and Eddie's like relationship. And I was like, y'all. Okay. So let me know what your thoughts are. That's all I want to say. I mean, I could talk about this for hours and hours, but they can't. The last thing I'm going to say is they can't keep doing this to Buck. If this is really the end of Tommy's storyline, they can't keep doing this to him. Every single relationship of his has ended with him possibly moving in with his exes. That's all I'm going to say. I'm choosing to be delusional. Allow me to be, please. Please and thank you. I'm sorry if this review was all over the place. Like I said, I didn't write any notes. But yeah, if you have any questions about my opinions on something or anything like that, feel free to leave them in the comments. That's pretty much it for this review. So if you guys liked it, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and leave a comment down below. Like I said, your opinions on these 2 episodes, what you think of the whole breakup thing, if you think Tommy's gonna come back. Just please, like, I've never wanted something more badly in my life than for them to just, you know. But yeah, like I said, this is not going to be the end of me reviewing 911. I will continue to review the show, and I hope you guys stick around to see where it goes. because I'll be here. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!